Are you the victim of corporate gaslighting? Well, chances are you're going to experience this phenomena at least once, potentially more in your career. Now, this manipulation tactic could come from your boss, could also come from coworkers, even potentially customers or clients that you might be interacting with. And the thing is, it never feels good to be on the receiving end. It's designed to kind of make you feel a little bit crazy. Now, I will say, I do believe that the term toxic employer is thrown around relatively loosely. And by clinical definition, most of us probably aren't working in toxic environments. They just may not be great for us, but they aren't truly toxic. But there are some circumstances where the employer may indeed be using this form of psychological manipulation to get you to start to doubt yourself, your capabilities, and your contributions to the team. And it's used as a tactic to gain control and power, oftentimes involving denial of mistreatment or spreading false narratives or undermining a victim's confidence and productivity. Gaslighting can occur in a lot of different forms, such as a manager or a colleague discrediting the victimized coworker's performance through persistent and multifaceted efforts, effectively leading the victim to question their own self-worth or their ability to meet expectations on the team. Now, this behavior can be difficult to recognize because it often is very subtle, and it can make you feel a little bit crazy. So in this video, I want to break down some of the subtle signs to look for that the corporation or your boss may be actually gaslighting you. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, my name is Brian, and I'm a career strategist and a corporate recruiter. And I've made it my mission to demystify how careers and job search work at major corporations. And I like to talk about things like career strategy, so how to navigate these tricky situations so that you can approach your career with more conviction and authority. So if this kind of content interests you, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you're tired of employers holding all the cards in the employment arrangement and you're feeling a little bit hopeless, you need to reclaim control over your career. And if you're not sure how to do that, I've created a free 1.5-hour webinar, which will walk you through exactly what you need to do in order to start taking back control from those employers. And to me, you are the best investment that you can make in your own career. So if you're interested in learning how to do that, I will leave a link in the comments below. Okay, so let's cover 7 common but sneaky ways that employers use gaslighting to manipulate and control their employees. First one is when they say, you should be happy to have this job. And this will often come from your manager, but it could come from the owner of the company if it's a small enough organization. And unfortunately, I've actually heard this one directly myself. Essentially, what they're saying here is you should quiet down, be happy, and be grateful that I'm keeping you on payroll because you may get laid off next. Now, this will often come when you're asking for a raise or expanded responsibility, but I've also heard this when you're getting shut down for asking for additional training or trying to be developed. The employer doesn't have time for you. The boss is telling you, just get out of my hair and I don't want to deal with you. And they shut you down by gaslighting you and saying, you should just be happy to have a job here. Get back to work. And if you do hear this one, I guess it is possible maybe you caught them on a bad day, but that's not something a supportive boss would ever tell their employee that they actually truly valued. Second one is going to be the most popular one probably of the whole bunch, and it is, we are family here. And obviously this one is covered with red flags and is very much a gaslighting because what they are looking for is for you to be as dedicated to them as you are your family. Honestly, probably more dedicated to them than you are your family. They're going to expect you to take those phone calls over the weekends. They're going to expect you to miss your kids' little league games to make sure that you get that slide deck in order for them on Monday morning. They want to know that you're going to jump on an airplane and fly overseas for that week-long meeting, even though it means you're missing your kid's birthday party, because that's what family does. So in other words, when they say this, it's usually followed up with some request for unpaid overtime or some blurred boundary of some sort, or asking for unreasonable loyalty when they're not offering the same in return. Because let's face it, they're only going to act like family when it's something in it for them. But when they no longer need you, they will kick you to the curb just as fast as they can, and they won't think twice about it. And I guarantee you, they're never going to call you and ask how you're doing afterward. And that's not really family-like. And the next thing they may say that's gaslighting is, well, everybody else seems to be okay with it. What's your problem? And this is usually a case when you voice some concern or push back on some issue that you feel is very reasonable. A gaslighting boss will often say this to you to shut you down and to act like you are outside of the norm. So in other words, they'll try to frame you as the problem when the issue may indeed be systematic. And this often stifles innovation. And frankly, just because everybody else accepts the status quo, potentially out of fear themselves, doesn't necessarily make it's right. So if you're approaching things in a professional manner and your boss is saying things like that, that's definitely corporate gaslighting. And next up is if they say something like, well, if you don't like it, there's a lot of other people lined up ready to take your job. And this is the absolute definition of toxic behavior by an employer. So if a boss says this, basically what they're doing is they are very thinly veiling a threat for your job. If you don't step in line, if you don't quiet down, if you don't play by our rules, there is a threat that will remove you and replace you with a much less squeaky wheel. The reality is, there probably is a bunch of people ready to take your job because people are desperate. But that doesn't give them the excuse to gaslight you in this manner, because you should never tolerate working for a boss that operates from a state of fear. And if they dangle your job over top of you constantly, that's no way for you to be productive and is certainly a good reason to start updating your resume and looking. If your boss is truly sincere about it when they say this to you, that's probably a sign that I would update my resume and join the rest of the people out there who are looking for new opportunities. But maybe wait till you have a new job lined up first. And speaking of job search, this is the perfect opportunity to introduce today's sponsor, Deleteme. So if you decide to leave your gaslighting employer and test the open job market, you're likely going to be applying to more than one position. As you get deeper into interview processes, they're using that personal information to conduct things like background checks. The problem is some of these background check companies are making your information available to resell to data brokers, who are then taking your information and propagating it all over the internet. And trying to remove your personal information is nearly impossible. But fortunately, Deleteme offers an innovative solution, where they will check on your behalf for instances where your personal information is showing up, and they'll take automatic steps to remove it for you. And getting started is really easy. You just have to fill out a basic questionnaire so that they know what to look for, and then they get to work looking for instances where your information is showing up and then scrubbing it. And every so often, they'll send you a detailed report of what activities they're taking on your behalf. So it's just an added peace of mind knowing that your personal information is being actively monitored. And if you'd like to get started, make sure you click the QR code. And they've been gracious enough to offer a 20% off discount if you use the code LAYOFF at signup. So that's joindeleteme.com/layoff. I will leave a link in the video description below. Next up is another crowd pleaser that I'm sure a lot of you have experienced. It's when your boss or the company keeps on pumping the brakes on a promotion or a raise or a potential bonus. They may say things like, you just need to be a little bit more patient, or you're not quite ready yet, but keep doing the things that you're doing and you'll get there eventually. Basically, what they're doing is they are kicking the can down the road as long as they can. They're trying to keep you engaged and keep you interested in the job that you're doing because you're more valuable there than you would be if you were to be promoted. Or maybe they don't believe that you're ever going to make it there, but they want you to continue doing the job so they don't have to re-recruit it. So they'll say is be a little bit more patient, but the likelihood of those raises or those promotions actually coming through are probably slim to none. And these are the exact cases where when I speak with a client who is dealing with this type of thing, you have to start to assess whether or not it's actually going to happen there, whether or not there's a clear path to promotion or getting what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then making a determination if it's in a reasonable amount of time. And then you have to act like the CEO of your career. Because listen, at the end of the day, what they want is for you to be a happy little worker bee who doesn't complain and keeps doing what it is that they expect you to do over and over again, and just be happy that you have a job. And if you cause too much of a ruckus, they might start saying things like, you just need to be more of a team player. So in other words, the boss may say something like this to try to keep you quiet or to discourage you from speaking up too much or to excuse some bad behavior and just get you to accept it. And again, if you're easily manipulated, this is also something that they might say in order to get you to take on those additional shifts, or to maybe dangle a carrot in front of you saying that if you do this stuff, if you act like a team player, that promotion's going to come. But again, based on the last one we talked about, the likelihood of that coming is probably pretty slim to none. And finally, they may say something like, this is just how things are done around here. You have to just deal with it. And this is often going to happen when you try to bring up some sort of innovation or question some status quo or try to bring in some change of process that might make your life a lot easier. If the boss doesn't want to deal with it, doesn't want to hear you out, basically what they're doing is they're going to stifle innovation by telling you, this is just how we do things around here. In other words, don't question it. And unfortunately, the longer you stay in this type of situation and the more you're stifled with this innovation and staying current to what the job market is demanding, You're just going to fall further and further behind if you find yourself on the wrong end of things like a layoff or you decide to quit and go on to greener pastures. So you got to be really careful here on this one. If they continually stifle you, you have to put together a very concise strategy to exit the business, but carefully. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other things that a company can say that might be considered corporate gaslighting, but these are some of the most common, subtle ones that I've heard in my career and I hear very frequently in the career coaching sessions that I have. Now, obviously, our first reaction shouldn't be to just immediately quit our job, especially in a tight labor market where it might actually be hard for you to land another one. But rather, we want to start to approach it with much more strategy and start to think about what our next moves really are and what the risk is for staying in this role with a gaslighting boss or a gaslighting organization, and if it's going to hold us back in our career, and then start to play chess. Because too many people knee-jerk reaction and leave jobs before they're ready, and it actually ends up hurting them more in the long run. But fortunately, if you're dealing with situations like this and you're not sure what to do about it, it's actually exactly what I specialize in. I've got a website called alifeafterlayoff.com, which is loaded with tips and tricks, all from a recruiting insider's perspective. And I share my deepest and most intimate knowledge in the form of some training courses. The first one being career strategy. And I know I keep on harping on this, but career strategy is the number one issue that I see people having in their careers that is systematic. They'll oftentimes try to solve their problem by putting a band-aid on it. In other words, they think that they have to go off and hire some expensive resume writer. But ultimately, it's getting down to the fundamentals of what's causing the problem to begin with. Because you can solve this one immediate problem, but if you don't solve the root issue, you're likely to just keep on repeating it over and over again. And that's why I created the Ultimate Career Blueprint, to give you a detailed roadmap on how to navigate your career with conviction and strength, all the way from day one through retirement and all the steps in between. Especially if you're trying to get promoted, you're feeling stuck at your level. This one breaks down careers in great detail. And if you're ready to get into an active job search, you're going to need to make sure that your resume is very clear, concise, and to the point. And that's where Resume Rocket Fuel comes in. Resume Rocket Fuel is designed to teach you exactly how to write a resume that's going to give you the highest likelihood of getting the recruiter to contact you and put you into the yes pile. So I teach you exactly how recruiters look at resumes, how to build your own resume. And in fact, I walk you through resume writing myself as I build my own resume in front of you. Includes templates and all that kind of stuff. And of course, once you land the big interview, you don't want to blow it by not being prepared. And that's where the Ultimate Job Seeker Bootcamp comes in, where we break down interviewing in a ton of detail, give you all the tips, techniques, some specific strategies to ace each round, going with a high degree of confidence, and then make sure that you don't leave any money on the table. And if you're looking for more personalized help, I do offer some limited private one-on-one coaching. You can reach me through my website for that. Anyway, I'm curious to hear, what are some of the other gaslighting phrases that you've heard from bosses, coworkers, the companies that you've worked for? Leave a comment and let me know. Maybe I'll cover it in a future video. Like always, appreciate you watching. Again, I want to thank Deleteme for sponsoring this video, and we will see you on the next one.